Jim Nantz from CBS, kind enough to join us, called the NCAA Tournament. He's got the Masters coming up this weekend on CBS. And, Jimmy, let me start with what the NCAA official, the head of officials, said. He saw the replay in that Duke-Wisconsin game when the ball went off Winslow's fingertip, but didn't say anything to the officials, and now he's saying something after the fact. I'm just curious, why don't they get the CBS feed for the replay for those officials?
Oh, they definitely had the CBS feed. I think there's some confusion there. First off, hello, friend.
Hi, bud.
I think what really happened is they had weighed in, made their decision, and they did not see that last replay for whatever reason. They did not stick around until everything had been dispensed from the replay truck. And, it takes a little time to, I'm not talking about, hours and minutes here. It's just, you're looking at 6 or 8 or 10 replay machines, and they empty the bucket, so to speak, and then they enhance it a little bit by zooming in on that one shot that I thought was really telling, where you can see it just grazed the fingernail, if you will, of Winslow, and I think they had already left the table. I wish, now having heard this, I wish that John Adams would have done what he said he debated doing, and that was stand up and say, hey, guys, you might want to see this.
Was he
there?
It
is a national championship game after all.
Was he there in an official capacity, Jim?
He would be there. Now, that's a good question. Is he allowed to do that? But, yes, he was there as the NCAA tournament director of officiating.
He said, is it in my prerogative to get up, run over the table, buzz the buzzer, tell them to come back and look? That's how critical I thought the play was, and concluded that this is a job for the guys on the floor. I've never done this before. Why would I do it tonight?
Well, I've never seen it done before. I will say that, and I think an awful lot of John Adams. But, I don't know what the protocol is in a situation like that.
Well, don't tell me after the fact that you saw it.
Yeah, he probably wishes he hadn't said that. But, it's late in the game. It's the last game of the year, and every possession is absolutely crucial. So, I think we expressed it pretty clearly on the air. One of the officials came to us and said, we saw nothing. And I was just incredulous because we had just seen something. I did not know the sequencing, though, that they, at that point, had already left the table. And my eyes were fixated on the monitor in front of me and watching the same thing the audience was watching at home.
As the play-by-play voice, when you're watching a game, that national title game, was there one individual moment where if you went back, you could circle that and say, that's where it changed?
Well, I think it was that sequence of events when Wisconsin was up 9, and then all of a sudden Grayson Allen took on this persona like he was the man and had been all year long. And he knocks down a 3, then has a 3-point play, gets fouled and out of a timeout, hits 2 more free throws to score 8 unanswered points on the Duke side. That changed everything. They weren't going to win that game unless somebody gave them a spark. Now, having said that, then down the stretch, Tyus Jones and really the entire second half was just amazing. And he went out and won the championship for him. It's just interesting. So much is talked about the other 2 freshmen in Okafor and Winslow, but it was the third most talked about freshman in Tyus, and the fourth one who really has been obscured by comparison, Grayson Allen. Those are the 2 that won the championship for him. And I do say this. I think it was Mike Krzyzewski's finest moment. I really do as a coach. To have the wherewithal to have your 2 big guys in foul trouble and you're down 9 points, and to keep them on the bench and with a lineup that really they had never had those 5 on the floor in a critical situation all year long. And they won it. And they outperformed Wisconsin down the stretch, a team that always won the last 5 minutes of a tight game. For several years, Wisconsin knew how to close out games. And in this case, it was Duke that looked like a group of upperclassmen.
Did it make you wonder, as you're watching Grayson Allen, how has this guy been on the bench the entire season?
He did, absolutely. And I had Duke all 6 games in the tournament, Dan, and he didn't do a whole lot the first 4. And then Saturday, he had that one shot from the corner that bounced back to him, and he went in and slammed it down, and it changed him. I mean, as he slammed it, fittingly, he slammed it right in the direction going toward his teammates on the bench, and he had this primal call kind of a reaction, looking at his mates. It is as if he at that moment morphed into a different guy.
Have you seen his YouTube video from high school?
No, I haven't.
Oh, my God.
He has, and I pointed it out on the broadcast. He's a guy that when they measured these things at the start of the season, he has the biggest vertical leap on the team. He has a beautiful form as far as shooting, and he's exciting to watch as we just witnessed.
Yeah, and we got a new guy for fans to dislike at Duke for at least another year. So, they got their poster child, the next J.J. Redick and Christian
Probably
Laettner.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, he fits, he would fit right in as a guy that, there'll be people, because Duke just has always been that lightning rod kind of a team. People love him or hate him, and he probably will be, because he's a fiery guy who will just, for whatever reason, he'll strike some people the wrong way, maybe. I mean, I don't really... know him that closely. I got to be around this team for 3 weeks, as I mentioned, but boy, he's got the game to back it up. And I just want to say this before you transition to the golf. That Wisconsin team, when you're around these players, and I was around that Wisconsin team for 2 years, you can't help but meet, greet, and in the end, admire some people that you come across. And that Wisconsin team, and I've only done the NCAA tournament now for 30 years. It's one of my favorite groups I've ever been around. That particular team. And I'm not saying I'm rooting for anybody, because I don't. I mean, I play it right down the middle. And I have a deep admiration for Mike Krzyzewski, having called all of his championships and been around all of his great teams. But that Wisconsin team, whether you're talking about the player of the year in Kaminsky or Sam Decker or Nigel Hayes or any of them, Gosser or Koenig or Trayvon Jackson, who's a wonderful kid, there was something about them that was just really fun, and there was a magnetism about them. And I know it's of little consolation to them, but they're going to always be remembered as the team that beat Kentucky.
Yeah.
I'm sure they didn't win what they ultimately were looking for, but I just thought as a team that it had no McDonald's All-Americas on its roster and almost won the national championship and beat, of course, a loaded roster in Kentucky. I thought it was a very powerful statement about college basketball. I think they really gave the game a jolt in the arm to show people that you can win that way. Now, they didn't win the big prize, but they beat an undefeated juggernaut that was coming in there. And you can't help but sometimes walk away, and no matter how that game would have gone, I would have felt internally a little badly for either side. And I'm sure it's hard to accept when you're 9-up in the national championship game and you always win in that spot, that on that one night, for whatever reason, the other team knew how to perform or did perform down the stretch better than you did.
He's Jim Nantz from CBS calling the Masters coming up this weekend. We have the Jim Nantz Sound Alike contest for our listeners. Any advice for our listeners to sound like you at Augusta, Jim?
Well, am I still in contention to win my own competition?
1 year you didn't win, Jim.
That's not good.
No. We had somebody who I thought sounded a little bit more like Jim Nantz than you did there.
Wow. Let's send him down here to Augusta. You can probably hear it in my voice. You come through a stretch, and it's not Monday night, and it's not the two games you call on Saturday at the Final Four. It's the whole breadth of the month of March. For me, I called 15 basketball games in 23 days.
Oh, boy.
And trust me, I don't want anybody to think I'm confusing this with, like, manual labor or anything that anyone in the world would love to have the chance to do that. Trust me, in my heart, there's so much gratitude that I'm entrusted and given that opportunity to call those games. But the wear and tear of late nights trying to read everything that you possibly can to put it before your eyes, calling the games and pushing your voice to a certain level to cut through that invisible energy wave that the voice goes up against. You come to Augusta, and there's very little left, as far as the voice quality. So you should factor that in.
Okay.
When you're hearing these people need to go out and scream at the top of their lungs for about 5 days, and then get on your show and then try to read their copy or whatever it is they come up with.
Can you overestimate Tiger's appearance here?
Overestimate. I think it really always gets a lot of attention. This is something we basically see every time there's a major championship.
Too much.
He's the story going in. I mean, it is amazing there are a multitude of great stories here. To me, the biggest story is Rory McIlroy, and is he going to win the career Grand Slam? But so help me, Dan, during the course of the last month, having done a lot of media, and I've been asked about the Masters every step of the way during the NCAA tournament, every person who asks me, whether it's written or electronic, only wants to talk about Tiger. I get it. I've been around it. I've been around, documented the great majority of his spectacular moment in his career, but I don't know about overestimating it. It's just everything heads in his direction before you start one of these things. And I guess this year there's, first off, the fact that he announced he was going to play. We didn't know that until Friday. And then on top of it, he's taken on, speaking of a changed persona, he's got this new attitude here that everyone's seeing that makes people think going in that perhaps he is going to show his old form here, which, of course, would be very exciting to see.
I haven't seen this to me. When I saw him hug Mark O'Meara, and he hugged him twice when he arrived at Augusta, I went, that's different. And then all of a sudden we're starting to see he's got his children there. Lindsey Vonn is there. And he didn't go there to be embarrassed, but I don't know if he's going there that he thinks he can win. So maybe it's somewhere in between, but it's still great that just to have him there. It'd be nice to have him there for the weekend.
I agree, and I think that what a lot of people have to realize is we have watched his every move. It seems like his life has been completely covered every step of the way. But, he has a life other than just trying to win major championships. It's nice to have a little window into, Tiger the father, Tiger the human being, Tiger the friend. And, sometimes we get a little confused as the consumer, the viewer, the one who, looks at these tournaments just for what it means to them to watch it and root for a guy like Tiger. But, somewhere in there, too, they've got to go back and have a life.
Yeah.
And, it's their lives. They were put on this planet, to do other things than win major championships. It's nice to see that he's in a good place with all of that right now. I'm happy for him. I just was honored a couple of weeks ago to be asked to be one of Jack Nicklaus's presenters in the Capitol Rotunda when he was, I believe, somewhere around the 150th American to ever win the Congressional Gold Medal. And it was just a spectacular event. There wasn't a lot of media coverage around it, but it just said so much to me about Jack Nicklaus. And you get that award for what you do, not by winning 18 majors, but what you've done really with your life. And, I could go on for hours here about all the things Jack has done for philanthropy. Most recently, committing $60 million to have these series of hospitals in South Florida, named now the Nicklaus Children's Hospitals. And that's why you get a gold medal. But to see all the kids, all 5 of his children there and the 20-some-odd grandchildren there, and to see that his life has been a full life, a lot of people just know him as Jack Nicklaus, 18-time major winner. Well, he's a friend of mine, and I can tell you his life is not defined by 18 major championships. It's defined by Jack Nicklaus, the full man, the loving husband and the father and grandfather. And maybe that's what we're seeing with Tiger this week. There's a life to be lived out there. I wish him well in golf. I'm really particularly happy for him, though, that I'm seeing that his heart's opening up, and he seems to be in a very good place with a lot of that.
I know you're on a word count this week. I appreciate you joining us, Jim. Thank you very much.
Great to talk to you, Dan. It's a tradition unlike any other from Masters Tournament Week.
Thank you, Jim. It's Jim Nantz.